Hi, everybody. My name is Rachel Mikla, and I am the other co-founder and co-owner of Strength in Nutrition. So just like Kim, I am also a registered dietitian and a certified personal trainer. And today we're going to go through Module 3 of your Energy for Life program. So it is all about calculating your macronutrients. If you guys want to watch this video, go for it. I'm going to go through what is in this module and share my screen. If you guys prefer to read it on your own, you can also do that as well. So just to give you a little bit of an overview, today I'm going to be talking about what are macronutrients, as well as how to calculate your specific macronutrient needs, otherwise known as macros. So I am going to share my screen here, and we are going to get going. Let's do it. All righty. So calculating your macro needs. So macronutrients are the macro means that they are the nutrients we use in largest amounts within our bodies. So that is protein, carbohydrates, and fat. And we need all three of them in order to sustain optimal life. I know that sometimes people have thought, oh, we don't really need carbohydrates, we don't really need fat, but today I'm going to tell you why you need all three of them in order to have a sustainable lifestyle. So first of all, I want to talk about the importance of adequate calories, and then we'll go into the different macronutrients. So calories, a lot of people think the less, the better, right? And basically, just so you know, calories sometimes can be like a dirty word. People are like, oh, I need to watch my calorie intake. And necessarily, like, calorie just means energy. And we need energy in order to sustain our lives, right? And we need a certain amount of calories in order to function just even at rest. So, calories aren't just needed for exercising or for doing your day-to-day tasks. It's also needed for you to get your heart pumping and keep your digestive tract working. So we need to make sure that we're having adequate calories in our diet just to sustain those life functions. But we don't want to have excess calories because that is what will lead to weight gain. And we want to try to find a happy balance between too little and too much. So let's dive into how our calories are made. They're made up of the three different macronutrients, so protein, carbohydrates, and fat. And we're just going to talk about protein to begin with. So protein is the macronutrient that is made from amino acids. And main functions of protein include it is the building block of muscles, bone, skin, and cartilage. It helps build and repair different cells and tissues, and it carries oxygen throughout our bodies in our blood. So it is attached to iron, hemoglobin, and iron is found in protein-rich foods, right? Now, food sources of protein. A lot of people know about animal sources of protein. So those are the greatest amount of like bioavailability that our body uses is animal sources of protein, whether that be any sort of beef, poultry, fish, pork, as well as dairy products. However, there are different plant sources that provide ample amounts of protein as well. So thinking about those that come from soy, also beans and legumes like lentils, nuts, and even some grains have a higher amount of protein than others. So specifically like quinoa, if you've had quinoa before, that's a higher protein containing grain than another grain would be. And just on average, people are like, well, I have no idea how much protein is in something without it having a food label. So like 1 ounce of meat, whether that be, beef, poultry, fish, anything like that, is about equivalent to 7 grams of protein. So if you're trying to figure out how much protein you're eating at a meal, let's take that you had like a 4-ounce chicken breast, then you'd multiply 4 by 7, and it's about 28 grams of protein there. So that's just about on average. And also the same goes for like a serving size of plant-based protein, like half a cup of beans, for example, would be about equivalent to 7 grams of protein. Now, protein quality matters, all right? Like, not all protein is created equal. We do want to try to limit those highly processed meats, such as sausage, bacon, deli meats, because they have a lot of sodium in them. They also, the processing isn't that great for our bodies. And so we want to try to choose good quality animal products that are coming straight kind of from the earth. So thinking about like poultry, fish, even some pork and some grass-fed red meats. So grass-fed is going to have a little bit more omega-3 fatty acids in it versus corn-fed or soy-fed. And that's the reason why we say trying to get grass-fed. But just in general, making sure you're getting adequate protein is going to be important. And then you also want to choose plant sources of protein. So you don't necessarily need to be a vegetarian or a vegan to have plant sources of protein. We want people to include plant sources of protein in their diet no matter what, because it has different antioxidants in it and it's rich in different vitamins and minerals. So protein, that plant protein includes like beans and legumes, whole grains, as well as your nuts and seeds. And we also want to include those foods that are high in omega-3 fatty acids that have protein in them. So thinking about your animal sources would be fatty fish. So number one would be salmon. Salmon is awesome for you if you can try to have that like once a week. But also some other fatty fishes include like sardines, mackerel, cod, and tuna. And then plant sources of omega-3s, it's not as bioavailable, so it's not as used up in your body the same way, but they're still very beneficial, would be like walnuts, chia seeds, flax seeds. Those types of things are also going to come with some omega-3s and a little bit of protein too. So now moving on to carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are the macronutrient that is our body's main source of energy. Okay, this is what we use for energy in our bodies, and it's our main source of fuel for our brain too. We need carbohydrates in order to function. And the main functions of carbohydrates includes that it's broken down into glucose in our system, which is then converted into energy, helps us walk, helps us run, helps us do our daily activities. It also improves our digestive health because carbohydrate includes fiber. Fiber is very important for our digestive health. And if we don't have carbohydrates in our system and we're excluding that fiber, then we're not going to be benefiting our digestive health, as well as it's important for heart health and blood sugar control. So again, specifically fiber is important for that. Food sources of carbohydrates include your grains, so whole grains and refined grains. And then your starchy vegetables, thinking about peas, corn, potatoes, legumes and beans. They provide a little bit of protein as well as carbohydrates. And then fruits, your dairy products, milk and yogurt, and then obviously like your sugar and other processed foods that you think about are carbohydrates. And now, not all carbohydrates are created equal. We want to try to consume those more nutrient dense carbohydrate options. So, for example, if we're looking at grains, we want to try to choose whole grains over refined grains. So, the difference between a whole grain and a refined grain is that the whole grain contains all parts of the seed, whereas a refined grain only contains something called the endosperm. So because that's all it contains, it does have a finer texture and it doesn't go rancid as quickly. So it has a longer shelf life and it does taste good, doesn't it? But whole grains, because it contains all parts of the seed, are higher in fiber and they're better source of different vitamins and minerals. So that is why we want to try to have whole grains. One reason that we want to have whole grains over refined grains. And of course, for carbohydrate consumption, we want to try to have more of the fruit consumption and more of like maybe legumes and beans and starchy vegetables versus the sugar and processed foods. And we're going to go into ingredients, label reading and everything in a module down the line. But not all carbohydrates are created equal. And we want to try to choose those more nutrient dense carbohydrate options when possible. So the last macronutrient is fat. And fat is needed for our body for energy as well as for cell function. And we want to choose kind of those nutrient dense fats as well. Not all fat is created equal either. Now, fat helps us absorb fat soluble vitamins. There's 4 different fat soluble vitamins. If we don't have enough fat in our diet, we're not going to end up absorbing them that well. It also provides us with satiety, or that feeling of being full. Think about like if you ate a sleeve of crackers, let's say, you may not feel that full because the crackers, they don't really have much fiber in them. They don't have fat in them. They don't have protein in them. But if you ate half of that sleeve and paired it with something that had some fat like peanut butter, you may actually feel full. So it will keep you feeling full for a longer amount of time, which is one reason that we want to try to have fat in our diets. It also helps regulate our body temperature and affects our hormone health too. So food sources of fat include your nuts and seeds, including like nut butters, seed butters. Avocado is a great source of fat. You are going to get some fat within your beef products, poultry products, dairy products, oils, and then processed foods as well. So just like, like I said earlier, not all fats are created equal. And some of our favorites are those monounsaturated fats. So thinking about extra virgin olive oil, avocado, walnuts, peanuts. These are all a little bit different than the fat that you'll find in packaged food items, right? Or maybe even the type of fat that you're going to find in a big old steak. We also love omega-3 fatty acids because they help decrease inflammation in our body. And so things that are high in omega-3 fatty acids, kind of like we talked about a little bit, I talked about a few minutes ago, is going to be fatty fish, walnuts and pecans, as well as chia and flax seeds. So I kind of gave you an overview of what the different macronutrients are and why they're all needed in our bodies, examples as well. And now it's time to calculate your specific needs, starting with calories. So we're going to walk through this. If you guys want to have your calculator with you as we do it, awesome. I'm going to give you some examples, an example as we run through this too, just to make it a little easier to understand. And please know that this can be confusing. And so if you have any questions, reach out to us, message us, and we will definitely help you in calculating your specific macronutrient needs. So every single person is going to have something, a different macronutrient need. Even if you are the exact same height, weight, age as somebody else, it's going to probably be different because everybody's life is different in general. And also knowing that when we calculate these, this is a starting point. And there's maybe tweaks that will need to be made down the line, but it's just a great idea to kind of know like, oh, like how much protein should I be eating? Or how many calories should I have? I have absolutely no idea. It just gives you a great reference point. And we do not expect everybody to calculate these needs and track every single calorie. It's again, just kind of bringing guidance to you. And if you want to count your calories and count your macronutrients, you can definitely use our platform. You can use this Practice Better platform, and it will calculate. If you use the food journal, it can calculate all your needs for you. So first of all, we need to calculate calorie needs to start everything out. In order to do that, we need to find what your supporting calorie needs are with your metabolism at rest, otherwise known as your resting metabolic rate. So if you look here on the screen, it's going to show you kind of what, if you're a woman, you're a male, how to calculate this. So I want you first to take your weight. You do need to know your weight, and a lot of people know it in pounds versus kilograms. So you're going to take your weight, and to put it into kilograms, you're going to divide by 2.2, okay? And also for your height, we need that in centimeters. And a lot of people only know it in inches. So you need to take your height in inches and multiply that by 2.54. Okay, so if we look down here, I'm going to give you an example. 150-pound woman is 5 feet 4 inches tall, 40 years of age. Okay, so 150 pounds divided by 2.2 pounds per kilogram is 68.2 kilograms. And then 5 feet 4 inches is 64 inches total. Multiply by 2.54 centimeters per inch is 162.6 centimeters. Then we're just going to plug and chug into this equation up here. So we're going to take 10 times the weight in kilograms, and we're going to add that to 6.25 times the height in centimeters, and we're going to subtract 5 times the weight in years and subtract 161 since she's a woman. Males is a little bit different. So if you look down here, I showed you the math for this, and it ends up being 1337 calories specifically for this woman. I'm not sure what yours is going to be around, but you should have calculated that, and we're going to move on to the next step. If you need a little bit more time, feel free to pause this while you figure this out. So that's just the resting metabolic rate. That would be if somebody were kind of to lay in bed all day. But people have different activity, do different activities throughout the day. So we want to multiply that by an activity factor. And these are going, listed here is what the activity factors is. So sedentary to little to no exercise up until extra active. So for our example, I'm going to say that the woman above is moderately active. So her activity factor would be 1.55. Pick one that is specific to you. And then you're going to multiply what your RMR was, what we found in step 1, by that activity factor to get your total calories a day. Now, this is in order to maintain weight, okay? In order to lose weight, if you want to lose fat, we must be in a calorie deficit. However, we don't want this deficit to be too large. If the deficit is too large, we're going to lose probably muscle mass at the exact same time. When we go into too much of a calorie deficit, it's not going to be sustainable, and we're all about making sustainable lifestyle changes here. So yeah, it may take you a little bit longer in order to lose weight, but 95% of diets don't work because they're not sustainable. And like people cut calories by 1,000 calories or like half the calories that they're used to eating. So when we make this more manageable by subtracting 250 to 350 calories a day, that's going to be more sustainable, and you're not going to feel so deprived over time. So if you're looking to lose fat, you must be in a calorie deficit and subtract 250 to 350 calories from that total, and that's going to be your calorie needs. Now, if you're looking to build muscle, in order to build muscle, we need to be in a calorie surplus as well as do weight training. So it is recommended to take that calorie goal and actually add 250 to 350 calories. And like noted before, it's not that, oh, I get to eat 250 calories, 350 calories more of whatever I want. We want to try to choose those nutrient-dense sources instead of going for items that aren't as nutrient-dense. So now that we calculated calorie needs, we're going to go into specifically how much protein, carbohydrates, and fat you need. So just like with calories, every single person is going to have different macronutrient needs based on their habits, activity, goals. But as a general rule of thumb, what is recommended is listed here below. So protein should be 15 to 30% of total calories, carbohydrates 45 to 65%, and fat 25 to 35%. So first, we're going to calculate those protein needs, all right? So you have your calorie needs. If you don't, pause this video right now and figure out those calorie needs because you have to know all this to move forward. So a great place to start kind of is within that mid-range, 20 to 25% of your calories from protein. And know that like you can try eating 20% of calories from protein, see how you feel. Trial eating 25% of your calories from protein and see how you feel. And you can make adjustments to that as you want. So to determine the percentage of calories from protein, you do the following. You need to take 20 to 25% of your total calories. So that example of the woman above, 150-pound woman looking to maintain weight with her calorie goal was 2,073 calories. So we want to multiply that by 0.2 because 20% is 0.2, and you get 415 calories for 20%, or 0.25 for 25% would be 518 calories. Now, so she needs 415 calories a day from protein. Well, okay, what's that supposed to mean? I want to know my grams of protein, right? Like, it's not like it says calories from protein on a nutrition facts panel. So in order to determine how many grams of protein is in that object. You want to take that calorie number and divide it by 4 because there's 4 calories per gram of protein. Okay, so 415 calories divided by 4 calories per gram of protein is 104 grams of protein. So right now, determine that for yourself as well. Figure out what your grams of protein would be. If you need a little bit more time, again, pause this video because we're going to move on to calculating your carbohydrate needs next. So carbohydrates, we want to be 45 to 65% of total calories. And a typical individual, we don't need a lot of carbohydrates. We need carbohydrates, but we'd rather have more kind of protein and fat in our diet for more nutrient dense options because they're going to keep us more full and going to have more benefits for our bodies. And 45% of your calories from carbohydrate is typically adequate. However, if you are an endurance athlete or you're weight training a lot or you are doing like long bouts of exercise, more carbohydrates are definitely needed. So you would need to up the percentage for this. However, for our example, we're just going to use blanket statement of 45%. So determine your percentage of calories by doing the following. Take like whatever percentage you want between 45 and 65%, but like 45% of our example from above, 2,073 calories, is going to be 933 calories, okay? So to determine the grams of carbohydrates to consume per day, also, just like protein, carbohydrates has 4 calories per gram. So we're going to take that number, the 933 calories, and divide it by 4 to figure out how many grams of carbohydrates we need a day. And that is going to be, for our example, 233 grams of carbohydrates. So we have our calorie needs figured out, and with our calorie needs, we have our protein and our carbohydrates figured out. Let's add those 2 calorie numbers together. So we have 415 calories from protein if I'm taking the 20% of protein. If I take the 25% of protein, that would be more, but for example purposes, I'm going to take the 20%. So we have 415 calories and from protein and then 933 calories from carbohydrates. We add that together and that's 1,348 calories so far. So in order to figure out how many calories we need from fat, we can take that number and subtract it from the total number of calories needed, right? And then once we figure that out, we're going to put that into grams. Easy peasy, guys. And if you have questions, please reach out to us. We're more than happy to help you with this. So let's walk you through an example of this. Using our same example. So 2,073 calories total. And then subtracting the 1,348 calories because that's how much is coming from protein and carbs. So we have 725 calories left, and these are all going to come from fat. So we take 725 calories and we divide it by 9 because there are 9 calories per gram of fat. This is why fat has more calories than protein or carbohydrate containing food items. Because it has more calories, it keeps us more full, okay? And we need to stay full at times, but we want to make sure that we're having those nutrient-dense sources of fat in order to stay full, right? So 925 divided by 9 is 81 grams of fat. So you have your grams of fat already figured out. Now, if you want to do like a double check of your math, you can figure out if it is within the kind of recommended fat range listed above. If you remember, it is, I'm going to go up here, fat should be 25 to 35% of your total calories. So in order to figure that out, we're going to take the 725 calories divided by the total amount of calories, so 2,073, and then that equals 35%. So that is within that range. So now all of the macronutrient needs, calorie needs are calculated. And yours should be too. Pause this again to figure out your fat needs if you still need to go through this. And so for overall health and wellness, we recommend a little bit lower percentage of carbohydrate and higher amounts of protein. But again, these are going to vary depending upon kind of what your goals are, your activity level, your hunger fullness, your stage of life. And if you do have any questions, again, be sure to reach out. And people's macronutrient needs normally don't just stay the same throughout their entire life. It does ebb and flow depending upon what's going on. So kind of as a recap, total macronutrient needs from this example. So it's 104 grams of protein using that 20% of protein, 233 grams of carbohydrates, and 81 grams of fat. Now, again, these all come in ranges though. So you don't necessarily need to be like, I need to have 104 grams of protein and that's it. Maybe you have 104 grams up until it was like 130 something for the 25%. It's giving you a range, and just kind of knowing whereabouts you should be on a day-to-day basis is going to be beneficial for you, because a lot of people may not even realize what 104 grams of protein is, and they may think that they need a certain amount of protein, and then they figure out, oh, I need 104 grams. And then when they're looking at labels or looking at things and getting in their protein, they're maybe only having 50 grams. So this is bringing awareness to what your specific needs are. So this week's action step for you is going to be to calculate your calorie, protein, carbohydrate, and fat needs. If you're watching this video, hopefully you ended up doing it as we were going through this together. So that's already done for you. Otherwise, like if you want to, you can track your intake within Practice Better. But it's, again, just a good reminder to know what your nutrition needs really are. You may not realize what kind of your calorie needs are, or how much carbohydrate you need or fats. And it is common to either undereat or overeat, or have a suboptimal distribution of macronutrients. So now that you've learned how to calculate these, you'll have a more nutrient dense plate by having all three of those macronutrients. Please, again, reach out to us. We know this can be confusing. It is a lot of math. And we're going to be happy to help you on this journey. And again, like any questions you have throughout this program, be sure to send them to us. Message Kim or I, and we'll be able to help you on your journey. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen here, and I thank you guys for listening to this module, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye.